All right, so I'm going to explain lesson 1 here in the notes. We're going to kind of go through some examples and talk about some important notes that we are taking in today's class. In case you were not there, you can go ahead and use these later on to kind of catch up. So the first thing that we're doing in today's class is we're kind of looking at some pictures of some changes, and we're trying to identify whether they're physical or chemical changes. So you may or may not have heard of this before in terms of physical and chemical changes, but we're looking for something that's a little different. So as you can imagine, ice melting looks a little different than glass shattering, which looks a little different than whatever is going on here. So I'm going to have the students in class today kind of think about these first. But for this purpose in this video, I'm just going to explain the definition, then we can look at them afterwards. So when we look at a physical change here, we are looking at something different than what's called a chemical change. A physical change isn't going to change the physical substance. It's going to have the same properties, okay? So we're not looking for a change in terms of what the substance is. All right, so physical change, once again, we're going to say something like does not change the physical substance, so still the same properties. Chemical change, on the other hand, we need to change the properties of the substance. So something new is going to be formed. So we're going to see a change in the properties of the substance something new is formed. So there's going to be 4 indicators of chemical change we're going to look for. So the first one we're looking for is a change in temperature. You're going to see it get hotter or colder. The second thing you're going to look for is what's called a precipitate is formed. So that's going to be some solid that's going to kind of come out of nowhere. You're going to see gas is going to be produced. And you might see a change in color. So those are 4 things we're going to be looking for here. So if we keep those in mind, we're going to kind of go back to some of these examples here. So let's just go ahead and look at the ones on the bottom here. So if we look at this one, for example, the egg, we're slicing the egg, but it's still the exact same thing. It's still an egg. There's just pieces of an egg now. So this is going to be a physical change. It's not like we suddenly cut up an egg and now it's a banana. Okay, it looks exactly the same. It has the same properties. This one here, we're mixing these 2 things, and this is the result. If you go ahead and look at this, all of a sudden there's a lot of gas that's being given off here. So that's one of the indicators, if there's gas produced, that you're looking at a chemical change. This one here, what you're looking at is you're looking at 2 things being mixed, and you're going to see that the thermometer is telling you that both of these are close to room temperature at about 25 degrees Celsius. And afterwards, when they're mixed, the reading is up above 30. Okay, that's telling you that the temperature is changing, it's heating up. That's another indicator of a chemical change. This one here, we've got something clear mixing with something clear, forming this orange solid, okay? This is what's known as a precipitate, this solid that kind of comes out of nowhere. You also see that color change. So both of those are going to indicate that it's a chemical change. Looking at just a couple of physical changes here. So paper, ripping it apart, still paper. And then bending a wire is still a wire, it's just bent now. So both of those would be physical. All right, so the next thing that they're going to look at is basically look at a bunch of different reactions. This is your first glance, so what they look like written. They kind of look a little different. It's like you were learning a foreign language. You kind of have to kind of get used to how these are written. So first thing here, just some similarities, things that they're going to look for. So this could be something like they're going to see some arrows in each of them. You're going to see numbers. You're going to see letters, and so forth. We're going to talk more about what the difference is between this number and, say, this number, and so forth as we get going here. Differences you're going to see, so you're going to see different numbers and letters. You're going to see different compounds. You're going to see one thing, too, is a different number on left and right, and we're going to talk about why that is in a little bit. All right, so this third task here, they're going to look at some examples and try to figure out if they're chemical or physical changes. So this one, we've got copper reacting, copper wire, with silver nitrate, forming silver and copper nitrate. So you're going to see there's, first of all, precipitate formed on the wire. That's going to be the silver, okay? And then the copper nitrate is this blue solution now, okay? So we see a color change and some solid forming. That has to be a chemical change. So we can write precipitate and color are some big ones here. If we look at this next one here, so we have copper carbonate, copper 2 carbonate here, breaking down, decomposing, we'll talk about that in a minute, into copper 2 oxide and carbon dioxide. So right here we've got this starting out solution is green, and now it's black afterwards, and we also have some carbon dioxide given off. That's going to be a chemical change, I should say, because color change, and we've got gas. So color and gas are two indicators we can use. This next one here, we've got methane CH4 burning in oxygen, and we've got carbon dioxide and water being formed. So if we look at this one, we are starting all the way with gases already. However, we are forming gas still, so it's a different gas, and this doesn't look exactly the same as what's on this side, meaning we have forming something new. So we've got gas and new compounds. You could say this about any chemical reaction, they're always going to have new compounds. So the point of doing this is looking at how all of the chemical reactions are going to be chemical changes. And then finally, this last thing here, we were looking at noticing anything about the data given. So if you look at the masses, you can see some trends. So if we look here, this 0.325, if you go ahead and add these two together, you're going to get the same number. Okay, so when you kind of look at this, you're going to see that the mass of reactants equals that of the products. We're going to come back to this idea in a minute in the next lesson here, but we're looking at the conservation of mass here. So law of conservation of mass will be in play when we deal with these reactions even more.